This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to Around the World in 80 Minutes, a podcast series based on the book Around the World in 80 Years with Julie Woods, that's me, and illustrated by Ron Esplin, that's you, Ron.
It is me, I'm the illustrator, and carry on, Julie, you're doing very well.
In these 8-10 minute episodes, we are going to cover the 80 countries that artist and adventurer Ron Esplin visited by the time he was 80. We are in your second decade now, Ron. This is podcast 2 from 1955 to 1964. The family is now in Dunedin, New Zealand. You are in residence at 6 Wales Street in Roslyn. Your little sister Dorothy came along, 12 years, your junior, and you attended John McGlashan College, Otago Boys High School, and the University of Otago, where you attained a blues in snooker. Can you tell us what the illustration for this podcast is, please?
The illustration is of the Earnslaw, which is a steamship that plies at Lake Wakatip in Queenstown, New Zealand. And now we'd arrived in New Zealand and we were starting our lives there. Your country count for your second decade is 0. You stayed put in New Zealand, which is hardly surprising after the start you had. Can you tell us what it was like to be a little Scottish boy in Dunedin at school? Yes, I think it was quite a... I didn't find it a shock. It was more of a shock to the people who I was getting educated with, because here's this Scottish boy with this little piping voice and Scottish accent, and had no idea what rugby was, and learned that in fact you cannot head the rugby ball. This is actually against the rules. But it was to the hilarity of all my school chums that I did just that.
You went on to Otago Boys High School?
I did indeed, and when I was at McGlashan, I discovered the secret to getting travel for nothing is to volunteer to go to all the army camps during Cadet Week and through the holidays. And I went all over New Zealand, thankfully, to the New Zealand Army, and I didn't know that I was going to get a stripe every time I went to a camp, and I ended up the most highly decorated member of the school. I was the Company Sergeant Major.
Yes, and don't we know it, Company Sergeant Major Esplin. There's a lovely story in the book Around the World in 80 Years, which tells of your family holiday in Queenstown. And you must have been getting on your father's work, because he suggested that you might go and get a job.
He did indeed, and I did as I was bid, because you always do what your father bids. And so I went around, I think 14 or 13, I might have been 14 or 13, and I went to all the shops that were in Queenstown, not as many as there are today, and I went into a cafe, and they took me on. And what kind of a job could I do? Well, I was the potato peeler. And they put me in charge of a large sack of potatoes, which as soon as you emptied, you got another sack. And the peeling was not very appealing. You had to use a potato peeler, I can tell you, and they very kindly purchased a water-driven potato peeler that, if I watched carefully, it would actually peel the potatoes rather than disintegrate them to nothing, which did happen occasionally, I have to say. It was great fun, though.
And you heard that a tour was coming, and this piqued your curiosity.
Wow, it did. I thought, a tour? What is a tour? Maybe it's some kind, like a mower. I know, it must be like a mower. And so we're going to see a great big beast arrive sometime. And the trepidation grew in me as the days came closer when the tour was going to come.
And when the tour came, what happened?
Well, it's a little disappointing because it was a big bus full of people. And I hadn't quite got used to the New Zealand accent, and a tour is actually a tour.
A tour.
Yes.
A tour bus. So you thought that you were going to feed that tour a lot of chips, obviously.
Well, yes, I'd actually prepared quite a lot in advance of that arrival. However, it wasn't too disappointing, and certainly there was no risk involved in this visit.
You headed off to Otago University for the first time, studying French and German. What was the attraction there?
Well, I always liked languages, I have to say. And McGlashan College is full of boarders, I would suppose. There were almost half the school was boarders, and they came from farms. And if you wanted to play rugby against a bunch of farmers who'd been carrying cows around or whatever, it was a good way of getting quashed. So I took up soccer, and that was what we played back in Britain. And that was I became the captain of the team, which is I had a habit of doing things like that. It saved you doing too much work.
Where does the French and German fit into that?
Well, I'd say, mein Dog, was ist you doing, you fool? If someone did something wrong. And that way they didn't know that I'd said anything other than a nice few words of praise.
Seems pretty obvious where your love of languages came from. What were other members of your family interested in languages?
Well, yes, of course. My father was an artist, and my father and mother used to go away and travel Europe, and he would take slides, which was the way you got your photographs in those days, and then from those slides he would pick subjects that were going to make good paintings.
And did you have to endure those slide evenings, as we called them, I think?
Yes, but I actually really did enjoy it, and I learned an awful lot about the world. And this only piqued my interest sufficiently to say I'm going to those places. The Colossus of Memnon was one that stands out in my memory, and I thought, what a wonderful name. A lot of the Egyptian places, such as the Sphinx and the pyramids, you think, what's it really like to go to those places? And there's only one way to find out.
You've avoided talking about university.
Well, yes, I have, but don't worry. I knew the task was in hand, and I eventually did graduate, which was a momentous occasion. My father actually, I think he hugged me for the first time that I have memory of. So that had to be an important event.
You've been listening to Around the World in 80 Minutes with Julie Woods and Ron Esplin. And this has been the second podcast of 8. If you'd like to contact Ron, you can email him ronesplinartist@gmail.com or phone him on 021 358 082. And we look forward to seeing you back here for podcast 3. I'm that blind woman, Julie Woods, proud sponsor of Around the World in 80 Minutes. After going blind in 1997, I said why not so many times. I am now a professional speaker, author, advocate and coach. If you're looking for someone to help you or your team turn your no into why not, then why not send me an email to julie@thatblindwoman.co.nz or phone or call me on 021 913 513. Why not?
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.